Okay, folks, so as we've added a little bit of complexity, we've started to also increase our need for some debugging information. So let's do that now. Let's add an attribute. Okay, and then let's add a function down here. Actually, I'm going to take an assigns, and in this assigns, I am going to want to take some data. So, and I'm going to want to show that data, but only if a couple of things are true. So I'm going to call debug, which is going to be our helper function, and that's going to pass assigns, and it's also going to pass our debug flag. And it's also going to pass mix.env. So I only do this when it's pretty young in a code base, and so this is going to be true. So if that's true and this is dev, then I'm going to go ahead and do something. And I'm going to say h1 Okay, that looks good to me. And otherwise, so if this is anything else or that is anything else, I'm going to go ahead and render nothing at all. So let's see if we're getting debug content on the bottom. And actually, I think that I probably want this to drop in right there. So I'm going to say debug. So all that I'm going to take is the assigns there. Yes, then here's the assigns. And this is going to have to take a raw. And that's going to work just like that. So let's see if we're going to get any debugging info. So we're not. My intuition is that I've got this symbol kind of crossed up, that this is probably like that. Yeah, sure enough, we're debugging. So now I can do something real in here. So let's add a pre-block. So in this preview, we're going to, so since this is a live view sigil, or it will be, so that live view sigil, our pre-block, we want to show at, and I want to pass that into inspect. So now I need to close that bad boy up like that. Okay, so this is saying that I've got a syntax error before the pipe. Yeah, like that. Okay, so it's having trouble with the tetromino that we're passing through. So let's see what it's trying to pass. It's trying to pass this, our rendered content. Yeah, so it's trying to pass these pieces. It's trying to do an HTML safe in there. So maybe this needs to be raw, just like that, because we're in the sigil there. So see if it likes that a little better. Okay, so we're getting a safe value now. So what's going on here? So we're calling with one argument. We're calling this. So basically, what's happening is HTML safe or raw basically translates this to a safe string. And okay, so it's this raw here that's breaking. So yeah, So what we're seeing here is now some data that we can use for the purposes of debugging. So those are the points that we're trying to render. And if we go all the way off the screen to the right, you'll notice that this is going to 10 and stopping. So that looks like our points are working correctly. And this is going all the way down to 1 and stopping. So our points are working correctly. So that means that it probably has more to do with the way that we're converting the points. And now that I think about it, we had a 1 indexed point that we're trying to turn into 0 indexed pixels. So this formula that does the 2 pixels is going to have to take that into account. So I'm going to have x minus 1 here and y minus 1 here. And then I'm going to adjust for the width and height. So if I do that, yes, it comes all the way to the left, all the way to the right, and everybody's happy. So one of the things that we can do now, oh look, so if I take this and put it all the way against the border and try to rotate, as I am now, it's not letting me. But if I come off the corner, it's working just perfectly. So one of the things I'd like to do is, so that's the top. I'd like to take this all the way to the top. So I want to basically set my initial point differently than I am right now. So I'm creating a new block. The new block is here. And this new random, I'm moving to 3, 1. And I think I probably need to move that to 3, 0. Let's see if I like that any better. Yeah, that's better, isn't it? And if we want things to drop in from above, maybe we're going to have like 3 minus 1 or minus 2. So that'll drop in from above, so minus 3 even. Wow, how about that? Okay, so yeah, so I'm just getting, for only certain types, I'm getting, it's showing up just like that. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to implement down. And we're going to implement it with a character. And that's going to allow us to test the code that without having to play the game mechanic that moves us down with something that's a bit more predictable. So we want to do is write the piece that allows us to move something down to the bottom, but we don't have to wait for it to actually fire. So, and it allows us to control it on our own time. So let's do something that looks like this, and this is arrow down. And so what that's going to do is it's going to actually, it's going to move down and merge. Yeah, so basically what this is going to do is it'll move down as long as the system allows it. And otherwise, it's going to do a merge. So maybe we'll just call this move down and we'll remember those other things. And I'm going to take a socket. So this, all this really needs is a socket. And so this move down, we're going to drop it right where the other moves are. Where are they? Yeah, so this is do move, and this is move. So the do moves, yeah, this is the move right here. So I don't like that verb because I think it's too close to move. So I'm going to change this to, for the key down, I'm going to call this drop. So basically that has a more of a gravity implication to it. And so this is the one that I just copied. So let's call this drop. And so that's not going to take a direction anymore. That's just going to take a socket. And then, so the first thing that I'm going to do is say my brick is equal to basically socket. So now I have a brick here, and now I can basically so now I can actually basically move the brick. So this is a do move. But what we actually are eventually going to want is to build an API for this. Let's go ahead and start this work with something that's a little bit different. So rather than going ahead and shifting over to the other project, let's use the API that we already have for down. So that's Tetris.block.down, and I'm going to pass that a brick. And that brick already has the show implemented. So so basically here we're doing an assign. So let's copy this code, which is going to be a little bit different when we finish, but I'll show you why in a second. Basically this logic is going to be a little bit trickier. So we're going to assign the brick to socket assigns brick, and then we're going to say Tetris.initially.down. Okay, so this isn't going to work for the long term because there are two things that need to happen. So these functions right here each return a block that's either moved or not. This drop function is going to impact both the brick and the ground. So that shape is going to be a little bit different. Let's see if we're allowed to move our brick down. So let's reset. So it doesn't look like we're moving anything down right now. So that probably means, okay, so we're taking arrow down and we're calling drop. And then in drop, we're assigning the socket with the brick, and then socket assigns brick, whatever's in that brick, and then we're moving that down. Here it is. Nope, it's taking it's basically placing this in. So I think that we need an IO inspect just to see if we're causing ourselves any trouble here. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to press down a couple of times and see if we're getting some messages where we should be. So yes, we are seeing this piece change as we should. So if I press it a couple more times, and I did. So we are getting, so the brick is actually moving in that context. So we're assigning to the socket. So we're patterning our code off of this. We're assigning a new brick to the socket, and we're taking the socket assigns brick, and we're moving that brick down. So the new brick, oh, you know what we're not doing? We're not doing a show. So we need to take the socket and pipe that to assign, and then we might need to pipe this down to our show, right? Because basically what was happening was we were changing the brick just fine. We weren't changing the rest of the pieces. So yeah, so now if I go down, I go right off the bottom. So eventually what's going to happen is as I go down, when we hit the bottom, something should change. We should actually change the bottom itself. And we want to be able to see that in our debug code. So let's do a couple of things here. Let's tweak our initial assignment so that if there's if I have a down block and it's moving down successfully, or actually anytime, I should have a bottom that's on the board. So our new game, or actually, yeah, the new game should assign a bottom where there's nothing in it. And basically down here where we're passing the empty structs, like all these places, these are bottoms. So, and where do we get the bottom? It's socket assigns.bottom. So I'm not liking the shape of this code anymore. So let's go ahead and carve it up a little bit. So indent that, and then in the brick, I'm putting all of this code. And I think I like that okay. Socket assigns brick, and then I'm spinning each one of those. So so I could go ahead and align that like that. I think that's probably okay. It's not great, but I think that I can live with this. But probably a prettier way to do it would be to say the brick is this. Like that. But I don't think I like that any better. I think that would make things start to get a little bit too fat. You know what? The other thing that I could do, though, is pick off the assigns. So if I said assigns, right? And so then I don't need the socket assigns anymore. And here, I don't need the socket assigns anymore. So I'm going to save myself a lot of real estate horizontally. And that might make this some code that's pretty and readable. Okay. So I think I like that okay. Undefined function assigns. So did I type the assigns? Oh, I didn't grab this for each of them. So all the do moves are going to do this. This do move is going to do it also. So let's see. Yeah, and that's working okay. So now I'm taking the assigns.bottom. And so actually what I could do is pick off in both of these things. I could assign, I could pick up the brick right here. And so then it's socket and the brick is socket assigns. There's just the brick and then the Tetris try. You know, this could actually just take the pick off the bottom too, right there. And I think that I might like that okay. Yeah, so that's a lot to parse in the top, but after you've read the top one, then you've read them all. And this allows us to do this. Assign socket, and the brick is brick pipe to tetris.try_right bottom. That's not bad. So I'll sometimes play with the formatting, and again, you could use the code formatter if you want to, if that's your style. if I'm working on a small project and what I want to do is make things readable as I'm plugging through it, sometimes the formatter can work against me in the way that my brain likes to process things. So I think I like that. Let's see what that looks like. So that's working okay. Okay, so now we're in a pretty good place. So next we're going to jump back into the Tetris project. And when we do that, we're going to have something that looks a little bit like this. So in this down, or in the drop, we're going to be replacing the bottom. So the bottom and the brick, those could both potentially change, and maybe even the score when we get that far. And maybe we should make it handle a score right here. And we're basically going to do Tetris.brick.down, right? And then this is going to be the brick. So that's what our API is going to look like. And then we're going to replace all of those things at one time in the socket. Let's go ahead and make sure we leave this in a clean state for the next video, so that as others want to use it, they're going to be able to do so. Okay, so I think that this is probably a really good place to stop. We'll see you in a bit.